Alright, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Safely Extreme podcast where we discuss game design topics. This is for the week of October 25th, 2020. We are about a week away from Halloween, and of course, I am Josh Blaser, and my co-host, as always, is developer from Nexus Games, Sharky. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm just wondering where your tomato cosplay is for Halloween. I mean, now is the perfect time to wear it.
Well, I'm sure somebody will come up with some memes, some Photoshop images for that, right?
I've already seen some. The meme just got sent to me not long ago.
Oh no.
Thanks to Pick there.
Mm-hmm. Streamers measures first doesn't count. Yeah, this Halloween seems kind of deflated this year, with everything that is going on, and not a lot of good horror games.
Yeah, it depends on how you define horror. I mean, right now, kind of horror right now is our current events.
Mm-hmm. Or playing Amnesia 3. Because everyone enjoyed playing that or watching that one the other night.
Yeah, I mean, the horror isn't in the game. The horror is from playing the game.
Are the calls coming from inside the house? Yeah, and for people watching, if there's any good horror games that came out this year that I missed, please let me know. One game that was someone suggested was Lost in Vito, which is supposed to be a claustrophobic Silent Hill-esque kind of game.
Could be interesting.
So I meant Lost in Vivo. I'm sorry, VIVO. Came out in 2018. I haven't heard too much about it since.
Yeah, isn't that the same time whatchamacallit came out? My brain's slipping here. The one we played on multiplayer night.
Ultimate Chicken Horse?
No, before that.
Among Us?
Yeah, Among Us. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that the same year Among Us came out?
Should be about 2018. 2018.
Actually, now thinking about that, it's the same year Chromasia came out.
There you go. And apparently it came out a week after Lost in Vito. Or Vivo.
I mean, 2018 was not a good year for games. Apparently that's the year Candy Raid came out too.
Mm-hmm. And then 2019 was the amazing year. And now 2020 is the year.
Yeah. I'm wondering if that is a direct result of two things that Steam did. Number one, that was the year they swapped from Greenlight to, everybody gets on free, the free ride now.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also the year that they didn't tell anybody that they were going to have a Steam Summer sale or when it would be until like 3 days before, which was like 2 weeks before I launched. It was like, like the day the Steam sale ended was like 1 week before we released. And I'm like, oh, I really wish I did not promise everybody that we would not delay the game again, because that game sorely needed to be delayed. Mm-hmm. It needed other things too, but I mean, delay was definitely something it needed, as well as art revamp and tons of other things. But yeah, I think that was definitely a pretty big issue with releasing at that time. And I don't know what time Candy Raid released or any of these other games released, but yeah.
Let's see, Candy Raid came out October. Yeah, like the October-November season is always very weird, because this is usually when like the AAA games get their really big push, so that people know about it before the holidays, Black Friday, Christmas, etc., etc.
Yeah, I mean, August is really the last month you want to release a indie game kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing a lot of games being released in early access now. Baldur's Gate, Ultra Kill, trying to think of some of the other ones that we've played lately.
The Marvel game.
That's in early access. It's in a kind of early access.
Yeah, it's in the released early access.
Is that safely extreme?
I think it's extremely extreme.
But for those of you watching, our main topic for today is going to be discussing the idea of whether or not micro or small games are still marketable, and what does that have to mean in terms of designing a game, in terms of how big you want to make it as well. But to get things started, some brief news, a few major things that happened this week. The first one being that Devolver has acquired Crow Team, which that just kind of came out of left field for me. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I found it weird myself. It's like, wait, what?
Because, I mean, Crow Team's been around. I think they were, from 1994, 1995 they were founded?
I have no clue. And I haven't really ever heard of Devolver buying studios kind of thing.
There's certainly been a publisher. Oh, they were founded in 1992. My God, I feel old again.
Old man Josh.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, Devolver and, what's that other one? Goblins. That Goblin studio. Both of them seem to be very big and, snatching up indie games to publish. New Blood has been really going at it in terms of modern retro shooters or old school style looking games.
Yeah. And there's Chucklefish has been another big one.
Mm-hmm. Team 17, I think I've seen as well, or Team or Deck, one of those two names.
I don't think I've seen that one.
They just did. Oh, I think they just did Crown Trick. Let me see.
I haven't seen that one.
Team 17 is the publisher I was thinking of.
Oh yeah. Now it's ringing a bell.
Yeah,
I don't know what from, but it's ringing a bell now.
And I mean, we're seeing kind of that consolidation, I think, of a lot of what we consider smaller, big indie studios.
Yeah.
Small, big indie. That's another one.
Yeah, that's safely extreme right there.
Mm-hmm. Uh-oh. Well, we'll have to see. We're still around by then. The robot apocalypse has happened, Ryu.
Well, what about the Corona apocalypse and the Cyberpunk apocalypse?
I'm still waiting for the zombie apocalypse.
I am too. I got my shotgun ready and loaded, and ready to go out there and decapitate some zombies.
Yeah.
I've been practicing daily on 7 Days to Die.
Speaking about horror, I watched a horror movie late last night, and yet it didn't bother me at all. I no nightmares. I just had weird dreams as normal. I mean, I watched at 5 o'clock in the morning. I was like, okay, that's over. Let's go to sleep now.
Yeah.
And
then we had other news in the fact that Marvel thinks they're going to fix that game by just putting 2 different Hawkeyes in it and Black Panther and then fixing a few bugs, and it's like, hey, it's a good game now. No, that doesn't address a single problem, and that probably amplifies the problem, honestly.
I'm still waiting for them to roll back the whole Spider-Man is exclusive to the PlayStation version.
It'll probably be DLC.
Mm-hmm. You have to pay for as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a post going up this week that I'm finishing up about how much Genshin Impact is just blowing Marvel Avenger out of the water in terms of being that live service long-term game, and how I think a lot of developers, if they want to continue going down that route, need to look at what modern mobile games are up to. And if I find him again, I hope to get Ramin on for a discussion on that topic.
Yeah, you definitely need to get Ramin on.
Yeah, but for those of you watching this for live, this week coming up is going to be a very busy one for DevCast. So Tuesday night will be our roundtable, where right now we have confirmed Tim Ruswick, Tomo, Shark, and I on. We may get another guest for. We're not sure yet. Wednesday, I'm talking to a teacher who's also a game designer. We're going to be talking about designing a multiplayer style puzzle game. What was it? Thursday is going to be my chat, hopefully, with the developer. I think Zach or Tarnams. I'm not sure which one we'll get from Dwarf Fortress.
Ooh.
And then Friday is going to be Tomo and I. We're going to be discussing Disco Elysium as our Game of the Month kind of club.
Nice.
So I'm going to be dead tired by sometime late Friday, and my voice will be dead. So which will be great to play Among Us.
So we can expect a 24-hour stream on Friday, right?
Yeah. I won't be able to say a word during the Among Us session. That won't be suspicious.
Totally sus.
Mm-hmm. Why is Josh not talking?
somebody get the airlock ready for Josh.
And for those of you new watching, if you want more updates as to when these casts come up and videos, be sure to join the Game Wisdom Discord. That is linked down below. See, I got the plug-in early this time.
And the Nexus Games Discord, which is also linked down below.
Mm-hmm.
And also ring the bell on both of our, YouTube streams, because otherwise YouTube probably won't tell you that the stream is live, and you'll have to only catch it and record it.
Yeah.
And BoardFan has already prepped the airlock for you.
Perfect. Let's see. One thing that I found very interesting was that Sony has re-released. They released a new storefront or marketplace UI, and a lot of people have been complaining about, such as the fact that it removed wish lists as one of the features.
And that was on what? The Epic Store?
The PlayStation Store, the PSN.
Oh. I didn't know they had a wish list, but now they're
me
removing
neither.
them.
So we have not knowing things. I went to buy the Neo 2 season pass, and apparently I already bought it when I first bought the game, all those many years ago at this rate.
Roundtable before you knew that you wanted it.
The roundtable should be around like 7:38 ET on Tuesday. We'll have to kind of block that down because I know Jack unfortunately can't attend, and he usually has classes around that time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we gotta see if we can get a fifth person.
Mm-hmm. Eastern time peak. Let's see. And didn't some cloud-based software or service cancel itself this week as well?
I don't know.
I heard a lot of people on Twitter talking about it.
I don't pay attention to Twitter. There was a whole news about Ruin too, and whatnot.
And the whole thing about definitely some very weird stuff going on there. Like Bethesda bought the company, and then try to put them out of business and not compete with Skyrim.
I don't think they bought the company, did they?
I thought they published it or they agreed. They're saying that it was a sabotage from Bethesda and ZeniMax.
Yeah. It was definitely that from what I could see, allegedly.
Mm-hmm.
But definitely allegedly. Here we go. Is that safely extreme?
Yeah.
But basically, I don't think they owned it or was publishing or anything. I think they were just had a spy or something in there, or I don't even know. But they bought the studio after they released the game, and they had already planned that months, probably years in advance, kind of thing. I know that's what's been told anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like the day after the studio finished that game, they were bought by they were bought by Bethesda.
Mm-hmm.
And the publisher of the game, that was funding the studio and hired the studio, is definitely is suing Bethesda and everything, and now that and therefore ZeniMax kind of thing, because ZeniMax is the parent company of that, and now apparently Microsoft too, because they're not directly suing Microsoft, but they're suing Microsoft because Microsoft is now the parent company of ZeniMax.
Mm-hmm. The fun of the corporate world.
Yeah. So Microsoft is not getting sued directly, but the thing they just bought and own is getting sued.
Of course. Let's see. Anything else? Has there been any updates on the whole Apple Google Epic lawsuit?
Not as far as I know of.
Mm.
Rat still did bring up a point about Quibi shutting down.
Mm-hmm.
That's not game news, but it's news, I guess.
Yeah. And is
That was
Stadia still around, or did that die yet?
it is still around. They're doing something new right now, and I
Hi,
don't.
David.
I think they're doing something new, and it's something that's pretty much nothing from my understanding. But yeah, I think they're doing something new right now that's not going to have any kind of impact, and it'll be how you have a fish floundering when it's out of water and everything.
Mm-hmm.
The thing they're doing right now is one of those kick up flounders. So they're not just completely laying down. They're doing a flounder right now. Just a slight push up, and that's about it.
I think talking about games floundering, that may be a good segue into the weird games segment.
No.
Because
I didn't get my weird games in this week. This is just Josh's because I was running behind.
Mm-hmm. So these are the ones that I picked out, and 1 second here, I need to. OBS makes you have to update it. There we go.
I need to get that up on my stream too, if I can find out.
So there are a lot of disturbing looking games. There's one that if I mention it, I will get removed from YouTube just by uttering the name of it.
Oh no.
A lot of very graphic games that are apparently coming out the next week. You would think there'd be more horror coming out, but a lot of the horror stuff just looks painfully generic. So the first game that I chose was Shanghai Office Simulator. Because this is one of those games that they're trying to do everything. It's a story-driven game. But wait, you have to battle demons. And that's what the demons look like. I don't know what this panda bear is doing right now. But there's also card battles. So it's a visual novel deck building roguelike.
I just have to say their last screenshot is the best one.
Yeah, and that's another reason why I picked it too.
Got the shark.
Oh good, you can marry everybody. Except for your dad. That would be weird. Thank you, game. Apparently you have a child as well. So we come back up here. It's like, okay, this is like a standard like visual novel. Don't know what's happening here. What? And then, of course, there's just this random screenshot.
I mean, it says that it's doing everything, but it looks like it's not. It looks like it's just a visual novel with a little bit of splash of Slay the Spire.
Yeah.
Because every screenshot except for one basically is a visual novel. And then that one is like Slay the Spire. Like
I saw that Pumpkin Jack, or that Halloween like platformer game that we looked at on stream is coming out, and unfortunately they rejected my request for it. I wonder if it's because I'm just playing too many games. They just think I'm trying to steal game copies.
No, I don't think they can see that. What they can see is how many subscribers and everything you have.
Oh.
And since your number is low, that might be why.
So this next game is Jad, And I picked this because of some of these amazing screenshots that you can totally tell what's going on in this game.
Oh yeah, it's 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 like Blackness the game, but as a platformer or a plateformer.
Mm-hmm.
And look, you can even see the platform gas here, in the first screenshot, just slowly encroaching in onto the side of the screen.
Yeah. And look at these game features. You have jigsaw puzzles, dangerous saws. I don't know what convenient management is. Anyone know what that could mean?
You can conveniently manage to put the jump button where you want it.
Mm-hmm. And difficult levels.
Oh yeah, because we all know that difficult levels is the key to making your game successful.
Mm-hmm.
Just put difficult levels in it, and you'll be fine. And
Of
just make
course.
it difficult for the sake of difficult, not a fun difficult kind of thing. Because fun is not key to a game.
Oh.
You just gotta have difficulty. Just make it to where everything is annoying as everything, and that annoyance will turn into
It's
difficulty,
an annoyance.
and then that difficulty will make your game great, right, Josh?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We don't need we don't need fun games or
Oh.
good games. We just need difficult games by any means necessary.
Now, speaking about
Make-
fun games, this one kind of caught my eye, Kingdoms Reborn. I don't know if it's based off of another series, but it's kind of checking the boxes of what I would like to see. A game inspired by Banish, Anno, and Civilization. And I've been burned by city builders before. And what has me concerned is that there is no detail about any of this is actually working.
Here's a
Is
question: have you ever burned your city in a city builder?
yes, plenty of times.
Sounds like you need to get good.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I've had this dream idea of a kind of a civilization-style city builder, and I mean, this looks like it has potential, but I have no idea what kind of system they're using. It looks like they may be using a basic walker system.
I have no clue.
And multiplayer and city builder has always been a red flag after the whole SimCity 5 debacle.
Rats is wondering if you've ever heard of Wandering Village.
No. Wait, is that the one where you have a city on top of a giant monster or something? Because I think
Oh, that new one that hasn't even come out yet?
we played Industries of Titan, which I'm very excited about.
I've heard of that one, but don't know much about it.
We played it like week one of its early access.
Oh, you did play it?
Yeah,
What'd you think? I don't think I've seen that.
it was interesting, but it was still very early. Like there really wasn't a lot in terms of its mechanics and design in. But again, it was version one of early access, so I can't be too judgmental on it.
Yeah. Kind of like the way that. Do you think it had more or less potential than uh, that one building game that I had you play, the Factorial Light?
Final upgrade.
Yeah, Final Upgrade. Do you think it had more or less potential than that?
I think it had more potential because the presentation was a lot better and the onboarding was there too.
Yeah. Well, I meant that's easier changed
Yeah.
later kind of thing than
Mm-hmm.
than be core mechanics kind of thing.
Yeah. Let's see. So this next one I chose because of the name, because this is definitely an algorithm-friendly name right here.
Oh
Fear
yeah.
Protocol Codename Omega starring Agent Jack Banger. And don't you love these screenshots?
I mean that's a banger of a name. Well,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a Jack banger of a name. And look, it's Snake Man.
Yeah.
who is clearly not from anything else,
Mm.
except for it is.
I like this bullet that's like bigger than the gun that it's being shot out of.
See, the thing they failed to realize is Snake Man is an actual real character. He's
Mm-hmm.
from Mega Man.
Yeah.
This is a copyright infringement right here.
Oh, I love the genre. Avant-garde survival shoot 'em up. And I've saved the best part for last. Look at the rest of the store page.
Oh, Lord.
It gets better.
All the distorted check marks and
There we
X's.
go.
Oh, Lord.
Mm.
Yeah, that is great store page design. Everybody, you should do exactly this thing when you make a store page.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is exactly what everybody wants to see.
How many red flags was on this page?
I didn't see any red flags. I just seen giant distorted, green check marks and giant distorted green red X's
Mm-hmm.
in the shapes of flags.
Alright, so the next one, this one, like, on first appearance, looked okay, but I started to get some, like, real, like, red flag feeling out of it. This is Battle Hunters. So, the description of this, I like, and again, this is another thing we need to talk to indie developers about. Stop saying you are the first or you are unique when it comes to some of your mechanics, because it just comes off, I think, as being like not up to date. So this is a unique combat system where you combine strategic command with real-time action. You mean a real-time strategy game? Or a
Yeah.
real-time ARPG?
Well, I think unique can work, but not when you perfectly describe something that isn't unique at all.
And it's unique, but it's creating the style of older games. Oh my. It has that. I don't know, we need like a term, I think, for this. Like that kind of. It looks high quality, but not kind of look.
Yeah. Let me
Like,
actually look at this in detail. See if I can figure out what is actually going on. So, like, the textures on the side of the house are really detailed,
mm-hmm. Yeah.
but the roof is blurred.
Yeah.
It looks like the texture got overstretched, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it needed to be tiled rather than stretched, but it was stretched,
Yeah.
or
And
something along that lines, and it kind of looks like a similar treatment has been done to the ground, but only slightly.
yeah.
And the ground just,
It
I don't know, the
looks.
ground's kind of too busy, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And
I really like the little boxes, like, or the little UI panels each character are annoying me. They look very generic.
yeah, the I think they needed to work a bit on their faces, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure what they probably needed to do was not work on their faces because, like, on the models, it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm pretty sure this is just pictures of the models. They probably needed to actually get legitimate pictures drawn for this
Mm-hmm.
that look better, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it is a mismatch kind of thing between like the roof and the grass mismatch everything else.
Mm-hmm.
Not as extreme as my last game, but they do mismatch because of stretching and how
Mm-hmm.
busy the ground is and everything.
Yeah.
And I think the UI on the character boxes definitely needed some work.
Yeah.
That heart and arrow up just really kind of like don't look good.
and number. I'm assuming that's their
Yeah,
level, but why would you need to know their level when you're like in the middle of combat or you're walking around?
I mean, you could,
Mm.
depending on how they do their menu system and everything, but like if you look at their second screenshot, you can see they use the same exact UI, but they just extend it out a little bit and
Mm-hmm.
then move the change the information that's in it. And I mean that one doesn't look bad.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't like the heart, but everything else doesn't look bad.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean it's mainly the heart and the arrow and that number up there.
Mm-hmm.
I really kind of ruined that.
Yeah, like this one, I think could like end up either way in terms of being good or bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, and to Heine's point there, yep. I mean, we did that whole topic about just okay games, and they really like you can't just be okay anymore and expect your game to do well.
Yeah. I mean you definitely can't. I mean the story of my last game was the graphics were definitely not there. They were
Hmm.
definitely not even in the okay. They were in the sub okay. Well, I mean, they were okay in general, but for game dev, they were definitely way too far down.
All right, so for my next one, we have another deck builder. This is Quantum Protocol, and this is a strategic deck builder combined with visual novel storytelling. And right off the bat, I think one thing is that I don't like this card art. I think it's very generic looking.
Yeah, I mean, the it's not just the card art; it's the card UI. I mean,
Hmm.
it's really clean, but it's too clean, kind of thing. It doesn't have any character to it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's very clean, but it lacks character.
Yeah. And yeah, to Heine's comment there, yeah, even good is not really good enough these days, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. Good you can be great in everything and still absolutely fail very,
Yeah.
very easily.
So one of the reasons why I picked this game is I love this line. Break any system, even the game itself. I mean, I think that just seems like it's designed for me right here.
Yeah. The cheese stands alone.
Yeah. And then I don't know what this last thing means. Behind every program, there's a dream. And for game dev, that dream is a nightmare.
I mean
Sometimes the most important problems are the ones hidden inside each of us.
like I don't fully realize what's going on here in this gameplay, Jeff,
Mm-hmm.
but I mean it does look like it could be a fun game,
Yeah, well,
but aesthetics is just not there,
I'll
especially
put in
the UI
for it,
side.
but we'll see.
Yeah, I think I will too.
And I saw another one, a Lovecraftian cyberpunk adventure game, which just I think hits a. I never heard of Lovecraft cyberpunk.
Yeah, that might be safely extreme right there.
Yeah, it's. I may get oh god, I may get a DMod if I say that one peak. and
So what did Peak say?
and yeah, that is true, Honey. About yeah, promising games getting sabotaged. Unfortunately, game dev is as much a business as it is an art. And we've seen really good ideas just fail in the production stage.
Yeah,
I mean, that could
and
definitely be a topic, I think, for another episode, too.
yeah, it could.
Let's see. I think I have one more on my list. Like I said, there are a lot of, like, just disturbing games. They didn't seem to be weird. And this is the last one that I picked, and this is Dude, Where is My Beer? Which I kind of picked it on the name alone.
Maybe
This
his
is
beer's in his car.
maybe. And apparently, you are in search of a normal beer in a world full of craft flavored beer.
That
And it's
sounds
an
like a
adventure
nightmare.
game.
Wait, is this a horror game?
No, I don't think so. Well, you do have to deal with American black ale drinking hipsters
Oh, that
and
sounds like a
solve
horror game.
beer related puzzles. Is the answer to the puzzle just more beer?
I mean, it sounded like a horror game to me. This might be the best horror game of the year.
Mm-hmm. And you have to explore a dive bar and a rock bar.
Oh no, this is getting more nightmarish as we go.
And you have a beerometer. I like this. Wishlist the game and get a free beer. But down here, wait, what did it say? Beer not included. Aw. And more
and
game developers gave.
drink responsibly.
If more game developers just gave out beer to people, I think that would help sales, right?
Probably.
There you go. There's your promotional for Neon Continuum.
Yeah, that's what I'll do for Neon Continuum is
Play a deck builder drunk. Drunk deck building.
Every purchase of the game comes with a free, beer. Thing is, the game's free, so they can't purchase it. So
There you go.
So there's no actual purchases, and just give out the free beers for purchases that don't exist.
I will say, like, for this game, like, the art style is, like, there's, like, a very basic to it, but it looks very clean to me.
Yeah, it's a very, I guess you'd call it a comic book.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I
Or
do wonder...
more comic strip than comic book.
Yeah. I wonder how stiff the animation is, if there is animation in this.
Yeah. I am guessing there's not much in ways of animation because if you look at the character,
Yeah.
in every scene, he's got, except for like the first one where he's got his hand on the doorknob, every scene he's got his hand in the same place.
Yeah.
So likely there's not much animation wise, if anything, but could very well be surprised because screenshots do not do a very good job at telling us that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if the indie is not especially good at taking screenshots, which I am not, and I got to get good at that.
Mm-hmm. But I think with that, it's a very quick week. Again, there are some very disturbing games coming out, but those I can't show here. Let's get to our main topic. And what was that game? Aeon Must Die? Is that on Steam? Or... let's see. That's weird. Ooh. That is very odd. I typed in Aeon Must Die in on Steam, and it's not pulling it up. But there is a store page for
it. Must be Steam might have buried it. Because, they did the same to my game.
Yeah, that is odd. Like, if I search for one on Google, it comes up right away.
Mm-hmm.
But if I search for, like, on the actual store page itself, it's not coming up.
Yep, Steam does that. And they generally do that. I know they pretty much automatically do that if your game does not sell probably like 100 copies in the first week. I don't know what the actual number is, but I know they did that to mine right after the first week, and sales dropped off. From I got 9 in the first week, which is horrible, and then over the next 3 months, I got 2, which I only got those 2 because I knew those people in some way or another because I talked to them and linked them directly to the page because they couldn't find the page despite looking for it everywhere. And that's a bad thing on Steam side. Like, they should not make it where if you're specifically searching for a game, you're not able to find it. That's that's not only anti-developer, that's anti-consumer. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Here's like the thing that's bothering me. I type in Aeon must die, it doesn't show up. If I type in Aeon must and then the letter D, the algorithm's picking it up. I wonder if it's something having to do with like multi-word titles as well.
I mean, it could, because like I have noticed similar stuff like that too. But like, I mean, that was not the issue with mine because it was single word kind of thing and could not pull it up.
Mm.
It's you know, there's definitely something off with their search function, that's for sure. I mean, you know, it may not even be on purpose, but you know, you never really do know when it comes to Steam because they are they're Steam.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
It sucks to hear about the problems with development too. Yeah, that.
Yeah, that's one reason why I really do not care for publishers in general. Not that there can't be any good publishers out there, but you know, there are a lot of bad circumstances that only occur when you have a publisher. And those bad circumstances happen way too often.
Oh yes, I was trying to find that game really quickly that I saw that was the Lovecraft Cyberpunk one. Well, I'll see if I can find it after we're done talking. Let's see. But I think with that, let's get to our main topic. And we're talking about micro games or whether there is a market for small titles. And for this piece, there's kind of like two distinct areas. Excuse me. There are two kind of distinct areas when we talk about small games in this context. So the first one we'll focus on first is length or size. So in previous discussions, we've talked about how most games today typically have to be aimed at least more than 2 hours of playtime. And again, part of that, of course, is due to the refund policy on stores. But for some developers, we've seen this idea of focusing on the idea of a micro game. And would you agree, Shark, that micro in this context would be, I guess, sub-hour in terms of length, or a little less than that?
Well, I think we need to kind of have two categories kind of thing. One that's sub 2 hours kind of thing, or around 2 hours and below, rather. And I think the other one would be probably 30 minutes or less kind of thing. So we have like, what would you say, micro and macro? Or I don't know what would be the best terms for that, but I think that would be kind of the segments kind of thing. And I mean, you don't see very many of either of them ever get to any spot of notoriety either. And that's definitely something that we will probably be talking about.
Yeah, and part about this is, as you said, like there's this idea of games that are, in like the less than 2 hour period, and then we have even less than an hour, or even like 45-minute, 30-minute period. And it's very hard, I think, in today's market to kind of get these things working, because we've seen developers try to push the story angle, and a lot of the micro games that we've seen, certainly from first time and starting out developers, have been, the visual novel or very story driven experience. It's meant to be a 30-minute unique tale. But the problem with that, is there a market for those kinds of games? Because as we all know, there are plenty of games being released these days. And some will argue that, yes, if you can market that this is a 20-minute long game, People may like that. But on the other hand, if your 20-minute game costs, I don't know, $5, and I could spend $5 or $10 and get an 8 to 10 hour long game, even if I don't have the intention of playing that game for 8 to 10 hours, there is far more value in the consumer's eyes in that purchase.
Yeah, and Heidi makes a good point by the fact that almost all of our games at the beginning were
Mm-hmm.
basically these less than 30-minute games. Of course, the way developers normally got around that is they made the games unbelievably hard to stretch it out because they don't want you to go through all the content because they're going to make it really really hard to slow down that process. But if you were good enough, you could get through any of them in 20-30 minutes pretty much, except for
Mm-hmm.
like the Dragon Quest or Dragon Warrior in the US and games like that. But like a lot of the games on Nintendo were just like that, just 20 or 30-minute long kind of things that were just you died so many times, and then they would, this was where the live systems got made.
Mm-hmm.
They give you so many lives, and then they just make you start over from the beginning for the true restart kind of thing. And like, those are outdated mechanics that we should pretty much not use these days
Oh,
unless it's
yes.
a special circumstance kind of thing. And the thing is I remember when I was a kid, like I would often go to the video store and I would rent a game for the weekend, and I would beat
Mm-hmm.
that game in the weekend. There was very few games I did not beat in that weekend.
Yep.
Like there was that one game, what was it? TC and Surf or something like that. I can't remember what it was, and I could not beat that one.
How about Battletoads? Did you manage to beat that?
No, I did not manage to beat Battletoads. I could not make it past the turbo tunnel. I got really far in the turbo tunnel, but I could not beat it.
Yeah, me
Not the 2-day
neither.
rental. If
Nope.
I owned it, I would have beat it, but no, because I beat every game I owned.
Yep, and again, like back then, yeah, Sonic 2, Double Dragon,
Mm,
like, older games were designed to be more on the difficult side, and you're going to replay it, and that actually gets to the kind of second category of games with a very short gameplay loop that gets stretched or padded out that we'll talk about later on in this video or in the stream. But sticking with the idea of very short games, a game that is intended to be 20, 30 minutes, like in today's market, there's always that, I think, a very fine line you have to walk in terms of quality. Like if you put, $500,000 into a game that you're only supposed to play for 10 minutes, I highly doubt you're going to get your money back.
yeah,
But if you release a game that you spend 3 days on, that's, a 10-minute long game, could you even get $1 for that?
probably not. I mean, you might be able to on itch from
Mm-hmm.
like up 5-10 people, but that's probably it. That's probably the limit to yourselves, because I'm pretty sure on Steam that would be booed off really quickly and not even get one sale. Well, I don't know. Game collectors might get it if it's 99 cents. Game collectors might get it, but they'll probably. I don't know if they'll get it before or after you announce that you're going to remove it from the store, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
That would be the real thing right there. That would be the real question. At what point would they get it, and would that even be enough to get your first payout from Steam, which requires $100?
Yeah. And that is the tough part about this, that developers are trying to, obviously we're trying to get as much value out of these games as we can. And like we play with Candy Raid, that it's a solid game for a 45-minute play.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's that idea of, if you're in the supermarket, are you going to buy like one can of soda, or are you going to buy the 6 or the 12 pack?
Yeah.
And most people, even if they don't have any intention of drinking 6, 11 more cans of soda, whatever, they're going to get where there's more value. And this is one of those things. Yeah, me too, Heidi. And this is one of those things that it's why, like, in my presentation about game development, I tell teens that this is both the best and the worst time to do it. It's good because the software and technology is there that anyone can make a game these days. The bad news is that everybody can make a game these days.
Yeah. And that is the eternal issue, because like the the thing is with everybody being able to make a game, now Steam letting anybody put a game on there. Now the stores are flooded, and these lower quality games that have, like, they put, like, some people think that you can build a game in like 1 to 3 months and then put it on sale for $15-$20, and with using nothing but cheap assets, not necessarily assets that from the store, but just I didn't spend much money to pay an artist to make these assets for me. Just here's a whole bunch of cheap assets made for like a couple $100 or $100, just something they could throw together real quick, kind of thing. And would definitely look better than like an asset flip kind of thing, but it definitely does not radiate quality or anything. And like games like that, like, really are like all over the store and everything, and it's gotten consumers to be wary of every game that's on the store, basically.
By the way, I just found a late addition to the weird games. There's a game called Don't Die Douche. That is the name of it. It is a difficult platformer. It's an uncompromising platformer that has been purposely crafted to annoy, upset, and enrage you. And I know you're going to love this. The final marketing point is that bugs? No. Think of them more like abstract features.
I mean, that is exactly what we just described as a perfect game, right?
Oh, wait. And this is one. This is the title of the game. I'm not kidding you. It's 6 random characters and a single floor dungeon. That's the whole game. That's the title.
That game is the best game. It's going to sell at least 10 billion copies. It's going to go so viral that well, actually, being serious, it might actually go viral because of YouTubers. Because it's annoyingly hard and difficult, which is the best thing for YouTuber reactions to just but
there we go.
But it's just perfect for you. It's perfect YouTuber bait. And I mean, the title's not perfect YouTuber bait, but like everything else is. And it's the perfect game, as in the perfect horrible storm of a train wreck. It's like when you have like a train wreck run into a train wreck that runs into a train wreck, that from the 5th dimension there's another train wreck that comes into it, and then somehow time travel causes another time wreck to hit into it. And then somehow, like, there's alternate dimensions from the Marvel universe that comes in and train wrecks into it. And then like the Hulk comes down there and train wrecks all the train wrecks.
Yeah.
It's the train wreckception, what that is.
And this again is the issue when it comes to selling smaller titles. I mean, again, we could easily just go back to Keymailer and do a second weird games, because there's just so many being released. And the problem is, as we've said, a lot has to go right for somebody to buy your game. You need somebody to look at your game and think that's interesting. They need to look at the marketing and realize, okay, they're going to like it. They gotta hope that your game is not being, sandwiched in or being you know, just surrounded by horrible games, because then they may lump your game in there. And of
Hmm.
course, you gotta make sure that the price is right, or people are going to think that you're trying to, cheat them out of it.
Yep. And now your chat is making fun of my game.
There we go. Discontinuum. There we go.
But yeah, I mean, like, and one of the most key things in not necessarily, well, I mean, this is key to marketing, key to start marketing kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
is you've got to have really good looking screenshots and a really good looking trailer, because if you do not have those, which you have to have really good art for that, for both of
Mm-hmm.
those, but if you do not have that, it doesn't matter how much marketing you do,
Yeah.
because it you'll be it if you don't have that, it'll be like you're marketing to a deaf person,
Yep.
and there is no sign language. You can only talk.
Oh, and I did find the Lovecraftian Cyberpunk game. It's called Transient, which that name is going to be, I think, a pain to find as well.
Yeah.
Mage the train wreck. Thank you, board fan. Yep. Yep. And again, like with Romeo, the ones who did Rovio could be as well. That you can, so many games will fail. Rocket Scissors Train Wreck. How does that work in the balance right there? And the problem is that you have to have everything working. And one of the issues I think we see from a lot of micro games is that typically something is not working. And I hate to sound, that sounds very mean, but it's that whole idea of, if somebody's selling a video game for 99 cents, you're not thinking, oh, that's an amazing deal. The first thing you're going to think is, what's wrong with this game?
Yeah. And to Heine's point, you know that I think that's pretty good. But what I would say is that um, gameplay is what keeps the consumers and prevents them from refunding.
Mm-hmm.
Where screenshots is what, and trailers are what are the final gateway to get them to buy.
Mm-hmm.
Where which are dependent on the artwork, and then your marketing is about getting those people and bringing them to your store page. And then there's a timing aspect to where right place, right time,
Mm-hmm.
you know and everything. And I'm hoping to hit that with my current game, being that card games are coming up in popularity right now, and Cyberpunk's coming up in popularity, and I'm making, well, technically a sci-fi card game, but it has Cyberpunk in it. So
Mm-hmm.
I may be able to hit the right place, right time, although I may
Mm-hmm.
hit right after that and be at the wrong place, wrong time.
Yeah.
And, definitely struggling there. And then the other aspect is the unknown amount of luck, and that can never be verified and whatnot. And that's always a difficult one.
Yeah. Also, I just found a game. I found all the weird games after the weird games segment. When you have a chance, Shark, look up Sloth Tales, and then tell me if you're blinded by this game.
No. Is this on Key Miller, I take it?
Yeah, and again, when you're trying to get as much value out of these titles, that I think, who said just a second ago, like with something like what Peak said, or I'm sorry, Highlander said about Arkham or Pony, that, like we said, there's a difference between a micro game, something that's meant to be played for 30 to 45 minutes, and a game that has a very short or very streamlined core gameplay that you're intended to repeat again and again and again.
You mean like a
And
roguelike?
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, there is a very big difference there, and it is astronomical actually, because and a lot of people don't realize this,
Yep.
that the let's see here, there's the big difference is that when you go through the core gameplay loop, it's not be like, here's everything we have kind of thing, and
Mhm.
it's done. It's like, here's a small portion that you got on your first try. Now let's see, if you can go through and get a bigger portion and more in different portions as you go through.
Mhm.
And that's what you always talk about, variance and everything. And that definitely applies to card games. Multiplayer card games. It definitely
Mhm.
applies to, because I mean your normal card game is probably what, 5, 10, 15 minutes
Yeah.
longer a match, and then you go back and replay. You go and play like a battle royale or something. And I know some of those matches can go on for some time, but most
Mhm.
people get knocked out in the first like 5, 10 minutes, and then
Yeah.
they go back in, kind of thing.
And
And it's replaying the same thing, but it's not just experience the same thing, because every time you go in, it's a different experience. At least if
yep.
the designer has properly designed the game to work that way. And that is a art form of its own. It needs a really good designer to really know what he's doing to really pull that off.
Yep. And that is the big difference. And again, when we discuss about micro market here, that as Shark said, there's a difference between a game that is 30 minutes and then you're done, you have to play again, versus you can play this game, it's a 30-minute run, but you can then play it again and again and again and get a completely different experience. Or the core gameplay evolves or changes enough that, yes, you're still doing the same thing, but it's still delivering something different. Again, like Mario game. Mario's moveset does not change over an 8 to 10 hour period. You're still running and jumping in Mario 3 as you are at the end of it. But it's what they do to add more to that loop that affects how you experience that game. A roguelike being another big example. Again, like Biome of Isaac, Slay the Spire, Monster Train, any of those games. A Biome of Isaac run is a good 40 to 50 minutes if you're going like long end. But when you replay that, you're going to get a different experience. And that's what led to this kind of push towards replayability and variance with a lot of games today.
Yeah. But in cases of like card games or roguelites or anything like that that is built
Mm-hmm.
for replayability, I mean, at that point, I wouldn't consider it a short game anymore. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
30-minute game or 10-minute game or whatever. It's a 10-minute match, a 30-minute match or whatever,
Yeah.
in a arguably infinite amount of matches if the game is designed properly, kind of thing. And it's it goes it's no longer like a 10 or 30-minute playtime, but it's a infinite playtime essentially at
Mm-hmm.
that point. And I mean you can see the same thing in longer versions through games like Oxygen Not Included, or like 7 Days to
Mm-hmm.
Die, where and like Factorio, and a lot of games along that lines, a lot of the survival, I guess, genre, and genres that are attached to survival, because like they have a lot of systems that provide a lot of variance, kind of thing, like
Yeah.
procedurally generated maps. They have a lot of the stuff that roguelikes have. They tie quite a lot into
Mm-hmm.
roguelikes, and I never even thought about how much they actually tie in, but they do tie in quite a lot. Like
Mm-hmm.
randomly, procedurally generated weapons, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, which takes place of your procedural powers and everything in a rogue, and you have like your procedural generation maps. You have your it's
Mm-hmm.
can be very hard or very easy depending on what you find, what you don't find, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know what's around that other corner. But at the same time, it's very skill based, because the core gameplay loop. Well, once you're familiar with the game anyway, the core gameplay loop. You know what possibly the
Mm-hmm.
game can throw at you, both in equipment as well as in enemies, maps, and map types, I guess you would call it, like a biome or something.
Mm-hmm.
And you know there's just so much things familiar, even though they are entirely different games.
Yep.
But there's so many parallels between them. It's crazy. And that's where you get that kind of design, is where where you see a lot of the infinite replayability loops. I mean, you see that
Quote
same thing
unquote
in Slay the
infinite
Spire.
replayability.
Yeah.
And I think Pony brought up a really good point about fighting games as well. That the fighting game loop is what? A 2 to 3 minute long match? That's it.
If that.
Yeah. But you can replay that as many times as there are new people to play with. And this is what makes these games very attractive, and why a lot of people go for multiplayer or community focused games. Because the pieces are there. Like the individual pieces of a fighting game, you're not playing that for 80 to 100 hours. And we saw this in kind of like the dark ages of the fighting game genre, when there was no arcades and there was no online play. How many people bought a fighting game that had no multiplayer and played it for 100 hours? Not a lot of them. But when we saw multiplayer become a major focus of that, it creates the content in of itself. And I think we're kind of, going in 18 different directions with this talk here. Because game length, hits so many aspects of game development.
It really does.
And again,
when a game has that much replayability kind of thing, I would say it changes the game length from either 2 minutes in the case of a fighting game to 30 minutes in a Bioshock Isaac run, 10 minutes in a card game, or whatever it is, whatever kind of game it is, to now basically infinite length, because it is infinite for as long as the player wishes to continue.
Yeah. And there's a very important point I think we need to clarify or elaborate on right here. That there's a difference between designing a game around a highly replayable 30-minute loop versus designing a game that's meant to be played in 30 minutes tops. 30 minutes top. And that is a major impact of the pacing and design of your game. Because somebody may think to themselves, oh, I can, Binding of Isaac is a 30-minute run. I'll just design a 30-minute long game and I'll be good. It doesn't work like that.
No, not at all. Because there is so much to do to create that variance that, basically whatever it took you to make, I picture Binding of Isaac originally started off as a 30-minute, just a 30-minute tops run kind of thing. And then they went through and added all the variants. And I'm sure that all that variance and everything probably took them months, and took I don't know, probably 3 times longer, 4, 5, 8 times, even 20 times longer than the initial 30-minute loop kind of thing.
Yep. And like we've said, I know I'm choking, my allergies are just killing me right now all of a sudden, that when it comes to procedural generation, you have to make sure that your game is perfect, completely linear, before you break that up. And again, with something like the Binding of Isaac, yes, it's a 30 to 40 minute long run. Oh man, my voice is just really dying on me here. Yes, it's a 30 to 40 minute long run, but it's designed to have that variance. If you build a 20-minute long game that can only be played once and that's it, that's not the same.
Yeah, it's totally different, and that's. I think we probably expressed that enough. I mean, maybe we should move on to something.
To the second part,
like just talk about the flat 30-minute kind of thing. When you have just a flat 30-minute, I mean, they're going to play it and they're going to be done, and they're not going to play anymore after that point, because they've already experienced the entire story or experienced all the gameplay that the game has to offer. They've experienced all the game has to offer, basically. I mean, there may be technically more. There may be side quests and everything that you could possibly fill, 500 hours worth of time with. But unless they're a hardcore player, they ain't going to be looking into any of that. They're only looking at that 30 minutes. And, if they were not happy with that 30 minutes, you can almost guarantee you they're going to hit that refund button.
Yeah. And to Heine's point about mobile games, I mean, that is another topic in of itself about the mobile progression loop. And we may come back to that one, maybe either with a Ramin chat, or maybe we'll do that as maybe not next week, but the week after, depending upon how things go with it, because that is a very fascinating point. But to bring this, I guess, loosely back on top, we'll see how far we can go here, that when we talk about a 30-minute long game, what we're saying is those 30 minutes have to be perfect. And what we often see, unfortunately, in a lot of micro games is that it's not perfect. That it's going to have, rushed design, asset flips. And it's rare. And here's my question. We played, of course, Candy Raid and Minute. Can anyone think of other micro-focused games that turned out either well or were unique? They avoided, the micro game stigma of low quality.
Yeah. I mean, those are the only two I can think of off the top of my head that definitely, because like generally when you see short games like that are just 30 minutes or just an hour, whatever time period, just a very short period of time, generally they are of low quality because generally they're only that long because the developer didn't care to add content or anything meaningful to the game. Hence 30 minutes was all it was. Or you see the other case of where they make it a 200-hour game just because they didn't they had no meaningful content. There's just like, this level you can get 3 stars in. We'll make a level just like that, but slightly different, and you can get 3 stars in this. And here's 500,000 levels that are all basically exactly the same, just slightly different in level design. And it's like, no, don't just don't just make the levels the only thing different. I mean, like especially when you don't have much of a gameplay loop to begin with. Like now, if you have a really complicated game loop, that kind of thing can be acceptable, kind of thing. Like an Assassin's Creed, before they got ran out, like the first few Assassin's Creed were really good games. Like I especially loved the Ezio trilogy and the they quickly give you all the mechanics and everything, and then they just keep on using them in new ways and new experiences, and you have the new story moments and whatnot. But like the gameplay loop doesn't change.
Yeah.
And I think that can work, although they definitely went to, they went to fetch questy with all the optional stuff, and that was definitely overdone kind of thing and too hard to do. But like the core gameplay loop and all that, we're not telling you that you have to bring out new mechanics every so many maps. I mean, you definitely can. And, if you design your game well to work with that, then that can work, but Mario doesn't. Mario gives you all the mechanics pretty much right up at the front. But it doesn't, it doesn't stay its welcome kind of thing. And that's because, with those games that just add more levels kind of thing, they're thinking they're doing like Mario, but they're not actually doing like Mario, because the fact is Mario isn't just adding more levels. They're adding levels that put you into new situations kind of thing. And plus the fact is that Mario has like 20 different jumps usually, depending on which Mario it is. and their game has one. And
Yeah. And
and that's like if you think about Mario 64, you had you had the variable jump, that you could, depending on how long
triple jump,
you
wall jump.
press, it depended on how much you jumped, and then you had like the long jump, the somersault front or back and front, I think, didn't you? You had a front somersault and a
Oh
back
yeah.
somersault.
The running jump, the backflip, the side jump.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, and to Shark's point there, this is what we were talking about when we were playing what was it? A Plague's Tale last night. That it just recycles the same 2 to 3 minutes of gameplay again and again and again, and it gets padded out in terms of its story. Yes, the story is growing and changing, but how many times that I had to distract rats? And how many times that I had to sneak around a guy to get to a door that I then had to lead the little boy over to it?
Yeah, and there was the issue wasn't that you had to distract rats all the time. The issue is that every time you did, it was all the exact same.
It's the
It wasn't
same thing.
it wasn't like in Mario where you have to jump from this platform to this platform, but now this platform has a tilt, is placed
Ice
differently,
physics.
and has all these different things about it. It's like it, or this one's really close, or maybe there's like spaces where you jump and then there's a gap, and then there's a another platform and a gap and another platform, and you can only do it if you're just running across it. You have to jump and land on it and just keep on running, because if you stop, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Pretty
And
much.
to Rat's comment about recycling in a new context, that is definitely true, and that's where we get to some very inventive puzzle designs. Like we saw games like A Monster's Expedition, Filament, and I think a few others that we played, that you can take something and flip it on its head or just change it around and get a completely different kind of design. But there's that very fine line you have to walk in terms of that. Because, like we said a few minutes ago, just adding content for the sake of content to boost the length of your game is not good. If
No.
you can only get me, let's say through the mechanics, you can only deliver 40 minutes of unique experiences. If you just repeat all that and make it, oh well, now it's 80 minutes, now it's 120 minutes, surely that means the game is better. No, because we've seen. Oh, have a good night, Heine, and be sure to join the Discord if you haven't. And we do these shows every Sunday afternoon.
Yep.
But back to the point that we see these games where if you just keep adding time to your game, it doesn't make it better. It just means I'm repeating the same thing. But without the AAA sheen and shine and polish, or whatever you want to call it. Because a AAA game, like we said, they can get away with this. If your story is unique or interesting, or the game looks good, or looks amazing, people may want to stick around just to keep oohing and eyeing. If you're an indie developer, however, you don't exactly have the funding and resources as Epic or Nintendo to pull that off.
Yeah. And pulling, it's hard to pull up a good aesthetic as a indie anyway, just period, because it's just limited funds, limited time, all these restrictions and everything.
You either need to know an artist or be an artist yourself.
Yeah, or be able to hire one really quickly.
Yes. And art is not cheap. There's another important game design nugget there for everyone.
Yeah, programming is also not cheap either.
Yeah. And like we've said, I think there is that confusion among a lot of developers about when we say length, what are we talking about? Because we've been throwing out a lot of games in the last on the side for maybe like last 30, 40 minutes. And what we mean is, I said this in my book about platforming, but it works here. How many unique experiences can you do with your mechanics? And this is like what Shark said a few minutes ago about a lot of platformers. developers. And this is where they fail on. That the difference between a Mario platformer and what we see from a lot of indie developers is that an indie developer will have one jump. That's it.
Yeah.
And one jump doesn't have a lot of value to that. In Mario, there is a good. If I did I'm not able to do the math quickly in my head. There's at least a good 10 to 15 different ways you can manipulate Mario in any 3D game. Mm-hmm. So what they do is they use those in unique and interesting ways.
Yep, and not even all of them are required, but all of them will help you if you know how to use them. Because they will make a harder section easier. They will, and I'm sure speedrunners use the heck out of all of them because they know how to maximize each one to the maximum extent that they could actually be used to, kind of thing. Yeah. And the thing is they have their core gameplay loop is expanded by so much because they have all those jumps, not just the one. And if you just have the one, then that's drastically shortened the possible length of your game.
Yeah, because even go ahead.
Unless you have other mechanics that tie into it. I mean, Mega Man is a good example of that because Mega Man pretty much only has one jump, but he's not just solely focused on jumping. He is, he's got his power-ups, you got the management, you got the, healing and, recharging all your weapons. You've got, defeating bosses in certain orders to get certain powers to beat other ones in the rock, paper, scissors game
and every level has different obstacles to deal with.
Different enemies too.
Yep, and that's what we were saying. That, and to Pony's point there about making the basics fun, making the basic interaction of your game. This is what we say a lot, and this is not just about This is not just about Len. This is just about good game design in general. That when we play games on our indie showcases or when we try out new games, we can generally tell very quickly whether or not this game is going to be good or not. And that is on the basic elements. That if you can't get that right, nothing else matters. And this is a very big point again about the length of your game. If I am hating your game 10 minutes into playing it, what makes you think I'm going to spend 20 hours playing your game?
You'd spend 1,000 hours playing if you hated it, wouldn't you? Because you're a masochist.
Yeah. But again, you can't exactly go for the masochistic mark if you expect your game to be a huge seller.
Yeah. There's not a large number of masochists buying games.
Yep, and we see this from a lot. And one of the things that we see from a lot of developers who know what they're doing is they'll test their mechanics out in, like a test bed or in a prototype stage and see if they enjoy it. And that should be the very first test of your game. If you can enjoy playing your game without any art, aesthetics, it could just be a bunch of squares on screen, and you enjoy that, that's a very strong first step. That's not enough to sell your game on, but that's enough to start building something more around it.
Would you say that the original version of Project Triad that you played / Neon Continuum kind of hit that mark?
And
because
again,
there was no real art. There was real memes in there, but there was no real art.
Yeah, but again, for people listening, that doesn't mean sell your game with crappy art and you're done if the gameplay is good. We're talking about that was a prototype build. That was not something the consumer is supposed to be seeing or experiencing.
Yeah, that's step one of 500. And if you cannot get step one right, then everything else falls apart after that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is why there's a term of fail fast and fail often. And, that doesn't apply to everybody, but it applies to, generally the programmers out there. The programmers out there in the world that they're the lead developer kind of thing. This is who that mainly applies to. And what it means is you go out there and make a prototype, see if it's fun. If it's not, you go and make another one. You count that one as a disaster. It's a failed project. Go on to the next one. Make another prototype. It doesn't work, dump it.
Toss it.
Go out and do another one and make it. Doesn't work, dump it. And just do this all the time until you find one that works, kind of thing. Now then, for the game designers out there, generally you have a different way. For game designers, they'll go out there and get a notepad, and just start writing everything down, lining everything up, and getting things organized in a way. And then they're playing it in their head kind of thing and seeing if it's fun that way. And then they make changes kind of thing. And they keep on refining it. And then once they get it to a point where they're like, okay, this might be good to start off with, then they go and make a paper prototype or something along that lines kind of thing. And, or they do some random number generation, on the internet and, run numbers and, simulate a combat in some kind of way. They do something to simulate it. And then they're like, okay, this is good to start. They hand it off to the programmer and the programmer comes up with that. And usually when that one comes out, it's like, the equivalent of 2 or 3 versions after where the programmer came out with, in his first version. But, it also probably took longer too, but it's not necessarily a right way to do things. It's just the different approach from different mindsets based off of where you fall at in the game dev cycle kind of thing, or the game dev spectrum of talents. Rather.
Yeah. And like we've said, you have to be able to look at these games and see why should somebody play them. Again, we're kind of getting off topic here in terms of that kind of discussion. Yes. But one thing I wanted to bring up, the Dread X collection, that is kind of like the Halloween compilations, those games are made. And I think this is a very interesting point. I want to ask you this, Shark. I want to throw this to the people watching this live recorded. The Dread X collection is explicitly designed to be micro games. Basically, they hire a pool of talent developers, say they have like 10 to 12 games 10 to 12 days, make a horror game on a specific topic. We don't care what style you use. We don't care what the gameplay is. Just you have 10 to 12 days, make it. We then package all these games up into a singular bundle, which I think it is usually like $9 to $10 for each collection. And then they sell it. Now again, the quality and quantity, or the variety of these games, is completely different. Like, if you remember, Char, you saw me play Dread X Collection 2 with, the dating sim game and then, hunting squirrels. But what they do is that when you're buying the Dread X Collection, you're not buying one game. You're buying 10 to 12 games. Or, I'm sorry, in the third one, it's 12 games for $10. Do you think that should be kind of... You think that is a good model for micro games? That we go for quantity as well as some semblance of quality?
I mean, I don't think that particular game worked, but I think that you could build something along that lines that could potentially work. But you would need a longer time, I would say at least a month per game. And you would need to have a, aesthetic quality to all of them. And maybe even a unified art aesthetic across all of them. I'm unsure about that one, but definitely would need art, good art aesthetics on all of them. And definitely would need to have a, 30-day month kind of, at least time put into each one of them so that there's enough depth in each one of them to at least hold your interest for a decent length of time. Because
Mm-hmm.
in a week, there's very minor amount of depth you can get in there, kind of thing. But like if you put a month into there,
Mm-hmm.
you could potentially get, because I mean, like, the whole first version of Project Triad that you played was about a month, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you could get potentially that kind of depth in that period without the art aesthetics. But if we had another person doing art at the same time, kind of thing, and limited our scope to only a few cards, kind of thing, then like imagine that original version had like 8 cards in it, or 8 or 9 cards in it. So if we expanded that to maybe 10 or 15,
Mm-hmm.
20 kind of thing, and made it single player, because obviously the multiplayer does not work on that kind of thing,
Mm-hmm.
and then had a third person, an artist working with us at the same time, kind of thing. And then we had, multiple games along that lines. I mean, with good aesthetics,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that could actually hold up, but I don't actually know, because we've
Yeah.
never seen it done.
And I think there is also one very important thing to say that I don't think we've said yet, but I think it needs to be clarified. Just because a game is 30 minutes, 20 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever we say long, that doesn't mean it's going to be very short development cycle. We've seen developers spend months or even a year or so on a game that could only be 40 minutes long. Because, like we've said, if your game is going to be measured in less than an hour, it better be a damn good hour of gameplay.
Yeah,
Or you're just going to piss everybody off in that
we
aspect.
we've seen developers spend 9, 10 years working on their game for like 10 minutes of gameplay too,
Mm-hmm.
and all of it was very low quality. So
Yep. And,
that's a completely different story, though.
oh yes. And this is why you have to be very careful in terms of, excuse me, what you're developing your game around. Because, like we said, story can work to some extent. But, and again, this is easily another topic about you can't price your game around story, I feel, these days. You can't tell me this is an emotionally gripping story with 10 minutes of gameplay and I'm selling for $40. It's not going to work.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, price. The thing I've learned about pricing is, in games and everything, is it's all arbitrary. Honestly, it is almost completely arbitrary. I mean, there are certain restrictions that you need to abide to. You know
Mm-hmm.
that the quality of what you made is up to a high enough standard that somebody would be reasonably, acceptable to buy it at that price, kind of thing. But
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty much it. Like
Mm-hmm.
the thing is we've seen what's that? What game are you going with, Tomo, again? What's the name of
Disco
it?
Elysium.
Yeah, Disco Elysium was what, $40 or
Yeah.
wasn't it?
Uh,
And
Shadow
it
Tactics was, I think, $40 too when it first came out.
yeah, and like the thing with Disco Elysium is, like, there's not much to the gameplay loop. There's not much there at all. But
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of story, and it changes every playthrough,
Presentation is
because
good.
that's what the entire game is about. It's about
Mm-hmm.
making your own choices, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's a choice game. It's a choice simulator, basically.
Yep. And
And they had very high quality, aesthetics and everything, and they were able to get away with the $40 price tag. I wouldn't pay that for it. I was definitely interested in the game, and
I got
would
it
not
for a
touch it.
20 during the Epic Game Sale.
Yeah, I wouldn't touch it for $40, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe 15 or 20. Yeah, because I mean, in the end, it's basically just a Twine game with visual appeal.
Mm-hmm.
A
And
good Twine game, mind you. But
to
like, then you got the other kind of games where you you have, like, it doesn't matter how much time you spent in development, but if you have like a really good gameplay loop and everything, but really, shoddy aesthetics and everything, nobody's probably going to pay $15 for that. Actually, I can tell you that nobody's going to pay $15 for it, because that's what happened with mine. Really good gameplay and shoddy aesthetics.
Yeah.
And the thing is if the aesthetics were on point, then people would have probably paid $20, $25 for that. But like, pricing is really arbitrary, honestly. But like, there's this bar of indies, where basically you don't go below $15 if you want to succeed. But you also can't sell a game that's not worth $15 for $15. So you have to make your game worth $15, or go in that very risky path of placing it under $15 and hoping somebody's going to buy it, rather than ask what's wrong with this game because it's less than $15.
Yeah. And that's what we said earlier, that even if you make the most amazing 99-cent game or 50-cent game, you are going to be climbing a mountain to try and convince people that there's nothing wrong with your game for 50 cents. And I want to get to a few comments, because Will made, I think, two really good points. So the first one was about the market for, like the 2-hour, almost like a Friday night kind of movie, kind of game. It's a 2-hour experience, very short, very compact. You can finish it in a single playthrough. I think those, or a single play session. And that, I think, does have some merit. Like, I've used this term before, like the rainy day game. It's something you're going to play when you have an hour, 2 hours to kill. You sit down, you play it, it's done. That's it. There's no new game plus. There's not 50 hours of story. It's just, a single sit-down experience. And you still, I think, like, to his point, like, it still has to be a good game. Even if it only takes 40 minutes to play, I shouldn't be annoyed in those 40 minutes.
No, if your game is sub 2 hours, you better make that the most amazing 2 hours the player has ever experienced. Because if you don't, it's not going to stop them from hitting that refund button.
Oh, yes. And like we said, like, longer games can get away with it to some extent. If it's a 20-minute rough patch and in a 50-hour game, okay, we're willing to put up with that. If it's a 20-minute rough patch in a 30-minute long game, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah, if it's a 2-minute rough patch in a 30-minute game, no.
Yeah. And then the other point about what kind of experiences people want in terms of their games. Like, no one's starting the 30-year-old market in terms of replayability. I don't know if I would agree with that. Because there are people, like, I think this is where a lot of people conflate when we talk about pacing in roguelike or replayable games. That a game like Hades, a single run is 25 to 30 minutes. Once you know what you're doing, that's it. It's not, you're not sitting there playing Hades for 3 to 4 hours. What you're doing, for most people, is you're going to sit there and play for 3 hours in 30-minute chunks. And that is different than saying, I'm going to design this game that's an 80-hour long playthrough.
Yeah. Well, we all know Josh will sit there for 24 hours playing it.
Yeah. And again, this is why these talks about pacing and length are so tricky. Because it's so easy to conflate, the pacing of 30-minute chunks versus the pacing of a 30-minute game. That's it.
Yeah. And the thing is we talked in previous cast about pain points and everything. And I think length is one of those pain points. The overall length, not the length of a run, but the length of what they can get out of the game total. And if the length is less than 3 hours, it's a pain point.
And if it's like 100 hours, that could be a pain point as well too.
well, I mean, that would be,
Mm-hmm.
that would be a design pain point if they messed it up.
Mm-hmm.
That would not be a pain point if they didn't mess it up. It would be a pain point if they did mess it up. We're assuming that you did everything right
Yeah.
in this scenario. So if you did everything right, being less than 3 hours is still a pain point kind of thing. And the shorter it is more and more pain points, as you go lower and lower. And, like we said before, is people have a limited number of pain points. Now, if the game is utterly perfect and like 2 hours long, probably nobody's going to refund it.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't know any games like that because there's no utterly perfect games out there. So the question is how many pain points of the person do you hit before you get to that end? And and then how short is that end and how many pain points does that hit kind of thing based off of how short it is, because a 30-minute is going to hit a lot harder than an hour, and an hour is going to hit a lot harder than a 2 hour kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact is those are adding pain points to your game, so you're going to want to, especially on a short game, you have to especially get rid of every single pain point you can get. You should be trying to do that anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But
Do
it's even more important the shorter the game is, the shorter the experiences. And we're not talking about loops or matches or anything. We're talking about the total one and done, kind of thing. Once the thing is done, the shorter that done time is, the more you need to make sure that it's really great.
Yep.
And not only that, but like this applies to all games, you need to make sure that your first 10 to 15 minutes is really hooks the player. You need to really hook the player in that first 10 to 20 minutes, because the first 5 to 20 minutes, because like you need to put multiple hooks in them in that point, or else that's where they're going to stop. It doesn't even matter how long your game is, because your game is 5-10 minutes, because that's how long they played for.
Yeah. And to Brian's comment about if you were the first in a brand new market, could you really set the price whatever you wanted? I think if we were talking like 20, 25 years ago, when kind of like, probably more 25 years ago, when we began like first generation 3D, I would say yes to some extent. I think today, I don't think you could make something that different anymore. As in something that is legitimately never before seen, that is only available on a new console or a new VR or whatever.
Yeah. The thing is, I mean, like, even if you made something totally original and which, really puts it into a situation where there's a lot of places to really screw up at, because everything that's original is completely on walk territory, and absolutely ripe to make the worst mistakes in game design / game development out there kind of thing. And let's just assume that you are really good and really lucky and able to navigate all those pits, falls, and everything. Even if you do all that kind of thing, and length is not an issue. Let's just say length is not an issue. Whatever length it is, it's not an issue. The issue is that you have your game going for whatever price it is. Let's just say $100, because I think I've seen that in there. And you have AAA going for 60 or 70, as they're trying to go to now, and you have indies going for 15 or 20 kind of thing. Some being more than that kind of thing. The fact is you're going to be compared to the $15-$20 indies, and it's like, I could get 5 really great games for that price. And you're also going to be compared to the AAA, and you're going to be like, I could get 1.5 or 1 with all the DLC and all this other stuff, and AAA game with all the loot boxes in it and everything, or I could get your game. And the fact is when you look at it from that comparison, no
Mhm.
matter, I mean, unless the game is somehow like quadruple A quality kind of thing,
Mhm.
which doesn't even exist at this point. Although I think it was Ubisoft I heard was trying to make that,
Oh God.
and but unless you're up to that kind of quality, there's pretty much no way anybody's going to buy your game. Well, I mean, some people will buy it, but there's no reasonable number of quantity of people that will buy your game to make it successful at that point. Now,
Mhm.
then, if you're doing that as a early access kind of thing, maybe that could work. Like I seen Eco do something similar to that. I know one of the developers on that team.
Mhm.
Basically, what they did they planned on selling the game. I think it was they were planning on selling it in the store for $20 to $25. But during the early access kind of thing, they wanted to limit how many people actually played the game. They definitely
Mhm.
wanted people to come and play it and test it and whatnot and whatnot. And they wanted to get feedback and everything and from real players and everything. So what they did was they didn't put the early access on Steam because they knew they would absolutely get chastised for it. They
Mhm.
only put it on their website, and anybody who knew about the game was interested in the game could go to their website and everything. And I think it was like $40 or $50 per copy, and that was towards the end. It was way higher in price before that kind of thing. I think they started off at like $100 a copy at one point, and then they slowly came down over time. But they came in, then they also provided bundle packs that if you wanted to buy it for your friends, that they could play with you, you could actually get it way cheaper because like
Mhm.
it might have been $40 for a single copy, but you could buy like 4 copies for I think like $100 or something.
Mhm.
Barely more than 2 copies. So like they definitely didn't want to charge you for the sake of charging you. They wanted a barrier to entry that was going to keep the people who were not like super interested in the game away from it when it was in its most broken state so that they
Mhm.
can refine it and everything. And then once it's in a good showable state, then it goes into Steam early access. And then, it
Mhm.
has a more reasonable price on it. And that they put up that barrier of entry to, slow down those things. And that's the only way I really see a price tag working like that is if you do it like that, but the fact is when you do it like that,
Mhm.
you're going to have another issue, and that's getting people to actually come and play it at that price tag
Mhm.
because you know not very many people want to go play a very broken version of a game for even free, more or less $100. So your game better be super appealing, and you better be able to get it out there on your own kind of thing through like Twitter and Facebook and whatnot and wherever you promote. And it better be appealing enough and have good enough art to bring in enough people to
Mhm.
actually get enough people to even do anything with it before you reduce your price. And even that's a risk. It everything's a risk in game development.
Yep. And again, like when we talk about stuff like this, there are very few absolutes in terms of what will and won't be a success. Because we say don't do this because it will fail, somebody could do it and still succeed. There
Mhm.
are dozens, if not hundreds, of variables that lead into why a game will succeed or fail. And the problem when it comes to game design, it's very easy to only focus on a few of those points. Oh, this game sold for $5, so if I sell mine for $4, I'll magically be better. No, it depends on what that game is and what the design. And yeah, like to some of the comments, like again, price these days is a very weird discussion. It's why it's going to be our topic for the roundtable on Tuesday. That you know, 10 years ago, if you sold your game at $5, people would be like, what? The game is that cheap? Oh my god. Today, you release a game at $5, and it's like, so there's 50 other games being priced at $6 right next to yours.
Mm-hmm. And 2,000 more priced at 99 cents right beside yours.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't go lower than 99 cents because if you could, they would have already done it.
Oh, yes. And again, you're also competing with mobile games as well.
Mm-hmm. And free games. Just
Mm-hmm.
free games in general, not just mobile free games, but PC free games. And you're also, technically going against, Game Jam games that never cost anything to begin with. They were just, like the original version of whatchamacallit's out there, Forger.
Mm-hmm.
The original copy of Forger's out there, absolutely free to download from the Game Jam, the 3-day version.
Mm-hmm.
The first version of Chrome Asia is out there, the 3-day version of it. And people can download those games and they don't have to pay anything for it.
Yep.
And it's not microtransactions or anything. It's just just a free game. It's not much of a game because it was made in 3 days, kind of thing. But it's free and there's no monetization anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And usually there's a lot of creative games in there too. So I mean, like if you're one of those people who wants to play really creative games, kind of thing, that's your place to go. Go to game jams and play them for free. Because
Mm-hmm.
you will find a lot more experimental and crazy stuff on there than you will ever dream about finding on Steam.
Oh yeah, it's just crazy. I mean, I still haven't gone through that. What was it, like 1,400 different project bundle that I bought, earlier this year.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like we've said, just because you release a small game, that doesn't automatically make it marketable. I mean, there's so many of those titles that we saw on the itch, or some of the ones that we got to play, that were like, it's a 20-minute game, and then I'm frustrated within the first 4 minutes of playing it. And the thing is, I think this could probably lead to another topic, but I do have to get going in the next few minutes. That pain points just really devalue a game fast. And the less overall time in your game, it's going to just kill it immediately. Like, if you tell me that, and this is another thing, like, we see a lot of indie developers, like we've said, they'll put in their marketing points about, oh, this game's intentionally buggy, or we don't have the best art. Well, every time you say that, you basically subtract like $10 off your asking price. Because you can't do that in today's market. And like what Shark's saying, like in terms of like quality, like even if your game is worth, let's say $30, you may sell the price at like $15 to $20 just to compete with everybody else.
Because when we're talking about price in the current market, we're talking about price is arbitrary. And when we did our cast about price and value and playtime and everything before, what we discovered was that price didn't matter. The only thing that price mattered was hindsight. And it was hindsight not based off of the game length, but based off of how long we played it, kind of thing. If we played a game for 10 minutes, kind of thing, it didn't matter what the price was. It was bad in hindsight. Whether it was 99 cents or $100, it was bad because it couldn't hold us for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Where other games that held us for 2 hours, kind of thing, that were $15, we're like, it's not bad, not something I'd recommend. Where other games that were $20, $25 that we that held us for hundreds of hours, kind of thing. We were like, we cannot recommend this enough. This is just God tier. This is something you got to play, kind of thing. So the price had no variance on whether we enjoyed the game or not.
Yeah.
Or, it only had two factors: the hindsight to whether we thought it was a good deal or not, and the barrier of entry to if we would even purchase it to begin with, based off of the trailer and the screenshots.
Yep. Or
So
like
the
a game demo.
Yeah, so the trailer and the screenshots have to jump the hurdle of the price to get them into the game. And then once you get into the game, it's a question on will that player be able to play it for long enough that they think that the game is worth that price? And if they do think it's that price, and it's all subjective kind of thing based off of the person, but if they do think it's worth that price, then they are going to, keep the game kind of thing. And you're going to have they're going to think that it's, either a not bad deal or a great deal or anywhere in between kind of thing. And the thing is that if you really need to get them really, really far over that hurdle kind of thing, and where they think it's a, great game kind of thing, to get them to leave a review. And that's the reason why you generally only get, a review out of 1 out of 50 people. Although now it's, now that Steam's done several things to the system, and now it's about 1 out of 30 kind of thing. Or when it's so bad that it falls so below that kind of thing. That's why you get the inverse bell curve, because you just get the two extremes. You get the I love it and I hate it kind of thing, because everybody in the middle, they're like, they're like, I'll refund the game, but it's not worth ranting about, or I'll keep the game, but it's not worth raving about kind of thing.
And it's also important that this is something that I talk with some of the developers about, that when it comes to pricing your game, you can always go lower, but you can never go higher once your game is released. You can sell your game at $20 at launch and then say, you know what? People like it. Let's bump it up to $30. Because that will piss off everybody.
You can do that through early access.
Yeah, early access. But again, if your game is released as in 1.0, whatever your price is, that's the height. It will never go higher than that for the foreseeable future. Even if you add more content in, you cannot raise your retail price.
Yeah. But I would argue the inverse is actually better for early access. Start your price up high, like Eco did, and then work it down lower, kind of thing. Because you don't want the most amount of people playing your game when it's in the most broken state.
Yep.
You want the least amount of people playing that. AKA, you would want a higher barrier of entry kind of thing. But you don't want to make it too high to where nobody plays it.
Yeah. You want the people, if you're in early access, you want the people who are going to rip your game apart and essentially do your playtesting for you. You don't want, like, this one thing that I saw, like, the whole Baldur's Gate go on early access. There are people reviewing the early access build, which is, like, giving me a migraine when I think about that. Like, this is not the time to be reviewing or heavily, rating a game when it's in early access. You want those people who are going to give you as much feedback as you can use. Like, if you're selling your game, you're getting somebody saying, this game sucks, there's no content, and this is version 1 of early access, they're the wrong market for it.
Yeah, and you're going to get that the lower the price.
Yep.
So hence, it's probably better to start with a higher price so that you only get the hardcore people in. The ones that the hardcore will be the ones that will be like, I like your game, but here's everything wrong with it. Fix it because I want to enjoy this. And then you address their complaints and everything, maybe not directly kind of thing. You don't, we talked about feedback before about it's not a one-to-one whether you get feedback to how you act on it kind of thing. But they will point out stuff, and then you got to figure out as a game designer, what's the best way to solve that problem?
Yeah.
And is it even a solvable problem? Can you do something to band-aid it, kind of thing? All these different things kind of thing.
Yeah. And
that's just development as a whole.
It's a nightmare, as we said earlier. But
Is that the new Halloween? Everybody's going to become a game developer on Halloween.
there we go. But I do have to get going for tonight. And like we said, like this is one of those topics that just hits so much about game development. Because if your game is amazing, it should be a focus title. And if it's focused, it shouldn't be a 100-hour long experience. Excuse me. And again, here's my final point, and then that's going to do it for me. That one of the surefire ways to fall into a design trap when you're starting out is to say, I'm going to build the infinitely replayable game. My first game will have 800 hours of content to it.
Yeah, that's a red flag.
Yeah. You want your first game should be as focused as possible. It should, if you are completely new starting out gamers, I mean, you just finished a course in Unity, you just got out of high school or college, and you're building a game, I would say it should be between maybe 30 minutes to an hour long at most, if it is your very, very, very first title.
I think your very first game should be a game jam game.
Yeah.
And maybe even your second and third.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe some prototypes in between. And then your very first commercial game, you need to gain a lot of knowledge before you tackle that kind of thing.
Yep.
And there's a downside to length. Let me bring that up. This is something we didn't talk about, and it's not just running out your gameplay loop. I meant Chromasia, the word of the day. We haven't brought that up. The Chromasia, the word of the day. We had a core story that lasted 20 hours kind of thing with maybe 50 hours worth of total, 50 to 70 hours of total content kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is I think personally that it being a 20, like I was first afraid that it was going to be too short and everything, and I was so afraid of that, and that it wasn't going to be long enough and sell and everything. So I did everything I could by recycling content, and recycling is a very good thing if you do it right, and you can't overly do it kind of thing, because recycling helps scope, but if you do it too much, then you completely wreck your game. If you don't do it at all, then you completely wreck your scope kind of thing.
Like you shouldn't be, like we've said this before, like if you have an idea for this crazy mechanic that seems so weird and fantastical that you want to play in your game, but it's going to get you 5 minutes of content and it's going to take you 7 months to develop, that's not a good way to spend your time. This is what Tim has been talking about with his game, that he's finding as many ways as he can to cut corners in a way that helps his game without taking away from it.
Yeah, recycling content in a way that is beneficial to his game.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what you have to do, and I did that same thing, and I tried to keep it to a minimum so that, because I didn't want to overdo it and bring the game down. And luckily I didn't overdo it. But the fact is I see that 20-hour playtime now, like originally I seen it as a negative, because it's like your normal RPGs are like 40 hours long, and people are going to think, this isn't 40 hours. This is going to be inferior kind of thing. And now I'm seeing it as a, bad thing, not because it's not 20 hours longer, but because it's not shorter. Because the fact is in today's market, players do not have enough time to play games. There's too many games out there to play. And a shorter experience is good for the player, at least a shorter core experience kind of thing. So what I want to do in the remake is, I'm going to be adding a good bit of content and everything to it, and a lot of variants and whatnot, and that's and a lot more story bits that we're technically already in the script, or in the story, but never made it into the script kind of thing. But that's going to make it a lot longer. But at the same time, I'm going to shorten animation times, make certain animations skippable, make dialogue happen faster,
Mm-hmm.
do all these little things in here that will shorten up the game. And my goal is to make it, with all this extra content added in, make it down to 10 to 15 hours, like
Yeah.
half to, 3/4 of the game length of the core gameplay length, and still want to have that 50-hour, like total kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, I mean, some people do really enjoy grinding and everything and love that process. Although I may shorten that a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, I can almost guarantee you I'm going to shorten that a little bit, but not a whole lot. I still want to leave a lot of the total length, but shorten the core experience and make it way more meaty and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully through doing that, I can have a far less drop off rate on the players
Mm-hmm.
and have a lot more positive reviews, which I mean, we already had a 100% positive score, but
Mm-hmm.
just even more, and just more solid gameplay, more hooky, more meaty, more fast, less time experience. It just, takes all the fun and just compresses it into this super hyper fun
Mm-hmm.
area, because I
Yep.
think that would just make the game a lot better.
Yep.
And and that's why I think that a long time playtime is not necessarily a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
You
You
know,
want, like we've said, like going back to the roguelike example, roguelikes do not have long play times. An individual run is usually 30 minutes to an hour. But you get so much value out of that you want to keep playing it. And that is the big difference between when we talk about a short design game versus a replayable short game.
hmm but I think having that meatiness
Mm-hmm.
in there from taking a longer game and compressing it and making it more meaty
Mm-hmm.
is definitely a plus in my opinion.
Yep.
Which I think that's more of a new wave game design thing than old, because old definitely did not really do
No, they
that.
want. Remember, like the 80 to an hour long JRPGs from back in the 90s.
Yeah, and
And
there's still kind of that now. A lot of
yeah.
them.
And this is my final point. Then I do have to get going for tonight. This whole discussion reminds me a lot about when I made my video about making good YouTube videos. That you can talk for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, whatever, but every minute that you're on camera, you have to be 100% on. Like if I did one of my critical thoughts and I spent 15 minutes just babbling on or going and just like completely distracting from the point of that video, do people want to see that in a 30, 40 minute video? No. No, they don't. It's and it's the same kind of comparison to video games. If your game is 2 hours long, every minute of that 2 hour game should be the best possible version of your game that it can be. If you only have 70 minutes, that is amazing, then your game better be 70 minutes long. And as Shark said, that the days where quantity by itself is just, the only metric for greatness, those days are gone. I have over 2,000 games in my Steam library. I will never be able to get through them all at this point. So if your game sucks, or as we said, if your game has pain points from minute one, then really you've just developed a 1 minute long game, and you just spent the last 3 years on that. Because if
Mhm.
people don't want to play your game beyond that, you got yourself a problem. And again, if you get the basic foundation right, if it is fun to play your game from the very first minute, and you can keep building and building on top of that, you'll have an amazing game, whether it is a 40-minute long game or a 40-hour long game. But
And the more you can compress that fun
mhm,
together, the better experience it is,
yep,
and the more time you save for the consumer, kind of thing.
yep. We don't want, again, AAA developers can get away with padding because of that AAA price.
Mm-hmm.
you're not the people who are watching this video right now. I don't think you are going to be designing the next Call of Duty or the next what was it, No Man's Sky. You're not going to have that luxury of clout.
Yeah. And the fact is when you compare AAA to indie and
Mm-hmm.
everything, never try to emulate what they do,
Oh
because
yes,
the second you do is the second you fail.
yep. Again,
And
you can't be Blizzard.
yeah, and the other thing is, don't try to emulate shot in the dark indies. The lucky indies. The ones that had they not gotten lucky, or had they not been like total bosses kind of thing, and like the one of the best developers in the world kind of thing, they wouldn't have succeeded.
Yep,
And that goes for like Stardew Valley, where you had the total boss there at Concerned Ape.
yep,
That goes for Among Us, where
exactly.
they got really lucky like 2 years later.
Yeah, that is still a failure of game dev. I'm sorry with Among Us. I don't care how many people are playing it right now. I don't care what the viewership on Twitch is. That is a failure of design. It should not take 2 years for your game to blow up or
Yeah.
even be successful. And again, again, I keep saying final point. I keep adding stuff on. When I spoke with Rami Ishmael about it, he said that if he were to release the same games from Vlambeer, they did 10 years ago today, he would be out on the streets. Nobody would be playing them.
Because like games, that's another thing, is like games from, don't compare your games to games that are 13 years old. Don't compare your
Mm-hmm.
games to Minecraft. Don't compare your games to whatever game
World of
that,
Warcraft, Fortnite,
I mean, even indie games from 5, 10 years ago. Don't do it.
Undertale.
Yeah, don't compare your game to Undertale, because what they did, the market was completely different back then. If they
Mm-hmm.
release those games now, I'm pretty sure most or all of them would fail.
Yep.
Actually, I know most or all of them would fail. And it would probably be more like all of them. There might be one or two that squeak by with a success kind of thing, but pretty sure that if Undertale released today, it would have failed. If
Yep.
if Minecraft would have released today, it would have failed. If
Yep.
if any number of those games released today, it would have failed,
Yep.
because the expectations on the market today are very, very different than the expectations of the market a few years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, you shouldn't even be. I really don't even think you should really even be comparing yourself to games that were released, just 2 years ago.
Oh yes.
You know,
I mean, we said
because
earlier, like 2018 was like okay year. 2019 was this like bombastic year.
mhm.
And again, things change very quickly. And yep, and to Rat's final comment there, what are the expectations today? Again, that's another topic right there.
Well, quick answer to that is you have to study upcoming trends and everything.
Just
And
have a time machine.
I've studied, and I see that there's a flood of cyberpunk coming in, and it's going to become flooded at some point. At least I think it will be, like zombies was. It's going to be
Mm-hmm.
absolutely hit, and be like like a lot of games are going to succeed when it first happens, and then after you get to a certain point, almost all of them are going to fail because the store gets too flooded. And it's
Yes.
already to a point that basically there's not enough time to release to, if you're not already developing, deep into development on a cyberpunk game, if you
Mm-hmm.
start one now, you're pretty much guaranteed to be in that section where you fail.
Yep, and
You
even if
so
you
so
go
don't
ahead.
go off of that.
Yep, and even
And
if oh sorry.
another section that's coming up is card games.
Mm-hmm. And even if you develop something early before anybody else, people only care about what is on the store page today. They don't care that you spend 5 years of your life to release a game if everybody beat you to the punch while you were struggling to make that game over the last 5 years.
Yeah. And the thing is you can come out of before your time. You could be this. There could have been
Yes.
a really good cyberpunk game that released I don't know 3 years ago, and it was completely ignored. And then here in the next several months and everything, cyberpunk's going to blow up, and they're going to be just buried kind of thing, and
Uh,
never have a chance to succeed. And that's where we talk about timing, but also luck.
mm-hmm. Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter was heavily criticized because it was a 2-hour game that you were supposed to replay to get new content. Like a roguelike. And it came out 15, I think like 15 years ago, maybe a little bit older than that.
And that's probably where a lot of the roguelites that succeeded got their idea from, and then
Mm-hmm.
succeeded with.
Yeah.
So I mean, you can be first and lose. You can be first and succeed wildly, and
Uh,
it
look at
it all depends.
look at PUBG versus Fortnite, or even H1Z1 versus PUBG versus Fortnite.
Hmm.
But
Or even mods for Arma 3.
oh yes, but I do have to get going. We are actually over our time, but I think this was a very fascinating conversation.
Yeah, I think it was a really good one.
And again, like these topics, I am sure we're going to be bringing them up in future ones as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure this will be brought up several times. We'll reference back to this podcast many times. So anybody who's watching this, I don't know, a year into the future, we knew you were coming.
Mm-hmm. There we go. And next week we will be discussing, and I think hopefully this is on our list, but we'll be discussing the idea of being addicted to bad game design. And what does it mean when fans and just hardened supporters will refuse to look at improvements to games?
Yep.
So, with that said, we're going to wrap things up for this week. If you are new, once again, be sure to check out our respective Discord channels. They are linked in the description down below. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am on there at GWBicer. And of course, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that everyone keeps doing.
Yeah, and you can follow me on my Discord in the link description, and my Discord is Nexus Games LLC 1. And again, subscribe to both of our YouTube channels. If you want to catch the streams live, hit the bell, because YouTube probably isn't going to tell you otherwise. And yeah, I think that's about it.
All right. I will be back later tonight for our regular game streams. And for those of you watching this recorded, we do these Sunday shows around 4 to 4:30 starting time ET. So be sure to check things out. If you have any suggestions for topics, let us know.
Yep.
All right. But with that said, thanks for hanging out with us for this chat. Come back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care.